The other reason to understand identity is so you don't label other people and stick them in a box. In intimate relationships, in the beginning, people are totally open, everything's wonderful, and then, you have some problems or challenges with your kids or with your parents or with work or with cash flow in your business, or, you guys love each other, but you have different kinks, different experiences you grew up with, different ways of looking at life, different meanings. And now you start going, God, she's a jerk, he's an asshole. And if you do that enough, and especially if you go tell your friends about it, like I heard this one woman say, my husband is the prince of darkness, right? And it's like, wow, that's really going to enhance your relationship, right? Because you're going to look for everything he does wrong, everything that's mean, everything that's dark once you believe that shit, right? I remember a friend of mine, he kept saying, it's like, we go out and we play cards or something, and towards the end he goes, I got to go home to the ball and chain. I said, wow, that's really compelling. Right? And then I noticed one of my buddies, like 6 months later, had been around my other friends so much, he started using the same phrase. And the second guy loved his wife. And I could see the relationship change. And I finally said, listen, it's not my place, but this is what I do for a living. And let me tell you what's happening. You're not even seeing it. So be careful the limiting identity you attach to someone, because once you do that, your brain, you get in your head. You heard the gentleman earlier, I always teach, you get in your head, you're dead. You got to stay in your heart. Because the mind wants to make black and white, good or bad. It wants to generalize, distort, and delete to keep things simple. But life is a little more complex than these oversimplifications, and then you miss out on things that really matter. Is this making sense to you so far? So let's think of something you're not doing that you want to do, and you're not doing it. Why? I virtually guarantee you one of the reasons why is it's not part of your identity. In fact, it's outside of it. If you want to change your life, my friends, you got to change your physiology and you got to change your focus.
My very first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I want to get my head right. I do this thing called priming.
Today, what creates marketing is when you don't just market, but you add value to people.
The early stages of myself as an entrepreneur, I started all these companies from scratch. And then I met a gentleman, the gentleman started MTV, and we had this really cool conversation. He said, Tony, it took me a decade and a half to really build up MTV. And he said, and then I built another company, and he said, Tony, I realized it takes like 7 years, that was his number in his head, on average, to go from scratch to build something that's really stable and strong and so forth. And he goes, I realized there's only so many 7-year cycles in my body. And he said, but if I went to a company that already has been around for 7, 10, 20 years, and I bring my ability, my vision, my ability to grow that business, my ability to inspire the people, my ability to produce resourcefulness, then I get a multiplied effect. And he goes, Tony, you're the best in the world at what you do, but damn, you work your tail off. And so he asked me if I'd come speak. One of the companies he took over was Century 21 Real Estate. And he said, why haven't you ever spoken for us? I said, because your company asked me over and over, but they're cheap. They want to pay me $100,000 and my fee's $250,000. He goes, we'll pay the $250,000. I said, no, for you, I'll do it for free. Because he's a friend, and I'm learning from him. So I came and did the speech, and afterwards he sat me back down. He goes, Tony, there are 10,000 people here. He says, I know like all my financial guys, they all look to you, but you're like a rock star for middle America. These people in gold jackets selling real estate. He goes, do you know how much our business increased in those 4 months? And I don't remember the exact number. It was like 22 or 23% or something. He goes, do you know how much money you made me? And you got nothing. He said, let me give you some advice. Go find people that have some form of momentum that you can turn it around and get a piece of that. And that's how I changed. So what I looked for were businesses that I felt tremendous emotional connection to because I felt they'd touch people's lives in some way. And I looked for partners that were geniuses, but where I could bring my own genius to it, where 1 + 1 = 5, or at least 3, not 2. And by doing that, I got pieces of these different companies, and then it just grew and grew and grew and grew. So I'm in virtual reality. I have a company called NextVR. My partners are geniuses, and we just locked down the exclusive for the NBA. So instead of Monday Night Football, we have Tuesday Night NBA, and you literally, it's like you're on the court, you can look and feels like you can reach out and touch LeBron. It's mind-boggling, and there's no cords or computer. It's all done off your phone with an app. It's mind-boggling.
Wow.
We also have the exclusive for Live Nation for all concerts. So you can be right there next to Jay-Z or Beyonce, like you feel like you can touch them, right? I have a company that's #1 guy in stem cells in the world. I have a company that does genetics, that's just genius. I've got companies that are in the education space. I bought Adweek with a group of partners. I have my financial companies. So the diversity I have is mind-boggling, but that's also the secret to investing. if you got all your eggs in one basket and there's a problem, you need to make sure you run your business really successful, give it your all, not start 20 of them. But once that business really is strong and your investments are strong, then you can build a second one. Most people, they build a business and then it's not going as well as they want, so they start another business because it feels more exciting. And it's like, you have one child you're not taking care of, so let's have a second child and a third child, and it just doesn't work. But the diversity of it also makes me excited. So I manage 12 of them actively. The others, I have such great partners. Like, I own the Major League Soccer new franchise in LA. I'm a partner in that. It's called the LA Football Club. But my partner is Peter Guber, who owns the LA Dodgers and owns the Golden State Warriors, and about as smart a human as you could ever have in the sports field. And then I bought in the esports field. It's mind-boggling. We fill whole stadiums now of people watching people play video games. So I bought Team Liquid, which with my partners, with Peter and everyone else. And so, the opportunities are just amazing because I'm partnering with people who have skills that are the best in the world, and I'm bringing mine. And you combine them, you get a greater impact.
It's until you open your mind, open-mindedness creates that. We all shut down our mind. Like, for instance, when I broke the pull-up record, everybody around me, you heard the pull-up record was 4,020 pull-ups. That's the first thing they did. Oh my God.
4,000 in 24 hours? Or
yeah, there's 4,020 pull-ups in 24-hour period.
Yeah.
The first thing I did versus closing my mind to like, oh my God, that's crazy. I went and got a pen.
So how many is that every minute?
Exactly.
Every hour, every second.
Instead of taking life and making it out to be this grandiose thing, start breaking it down. Start breaking it down. And most of us, we live in a box. And we don't want to go outside that box at all, ever. Outside that box is all these possibilities of life. But what we do is we shackle our mind. We are a prisoner in our own mind. And this is all I can do. This is all I'm good at. And we take away the possibilities of you could be this, you could be that, you could be all these things. And I never thought at 300 pounds I could be Navy SEAL. Wow. So if my mind was shackled, me and you would never meet. There'd be no book. There'd be no book. There'd be nothing. So what people understand is that they live for themselves, not knowing that you have the power within yourself to change millions of lives by facing life, by facing yourself. And through that, I would die never knowing that I had the power to change millions of lives. And what haunts me the most, people ask me, what haunts you the most? What haunts me the most is that if I would have died at 300 pounds, let's say I was 75 years old, I got to heaven, and God has a chart like that on everybody's life. God knows all, let's say that. I don't care what you believe in, doesn't matter. I'm not judging anybody. But let's say my thing is God. You get to heaven, I'm 300 pounds, I sit down, I was a cockroach Terminator my whole life, and we're sitting down just like this. You're God and I'm David. And he gives me that chart, and he says, look at this. Now I'm looking at this chart, and on the chart it has all these different things, but my name's on it. But these things aren't me. I was gonna change the world. I was gonna set records. I was gonna be a Navy SEAL. I was gonna be all these things in the military that I accomplished. You're gonna get the VFW award. You're gonna be honored here, honored there. And I'm like, God, this isn't me. Like it says David Goggins, I was an Ecolab guy. I sprayed for cockroaches and I'm 300 pounds. It said here I'm 185. It says here I got a bachelor's and a master's. It says all these things. And God goes, no, that's who you were supposed to be.
Wow.
The moment you can figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, the sooner you are able to get about the business of doing that. The way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? Not think about, oh, I got all of this stuff. What is the next right move? And then from that space, make the next right move and the next right move. And not to be overwhelmed by it because you know your life is bigger than that one moment. You know you're not defined by what somebody says is a failure for you, because failure is just there to point you in a different direction.
I've learned to appreciate living in the moment, and I ask that you do too. I'm asking this graduating class, those of you here, I've asked all of my viewers in America and across the world to do this one thing. Keep a grateful journal. Every night, list 5 things that happened this day, in days to come, that you are grateful for. What it will begin to do is to change your perspective of your day and your life. I believe that if you can learn to focus on what you have, you will always see that the universe is abundant and you will have more. If you concentrate and focus in your life on what you don't have, you will never have enough. Be grateful. Keep a journal. You all are all over my journal tonight.
I always understood that there really was no difference between me and the audience. At times I might have had better shoes, but at the core of what really matters, that we are the same. And you know how I know that? Because all of us are seeking the same thing. You're here at this fabulous school, and we'll go out into the world and each pursue based upon what you believe your talents are, what your skills are, maybe your gifts are, but you're seeking the same thing. Everybody wants to fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. That's what you're looking for. The highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. And because I understand that if you're working in a bakery and that's where you want to be, and that may be what you've always wanted to do, is to bake pies for people or bake cakes for people or to offer your gift, then that's for you. And there's no difference between you and me, except that's your platform. That's your show every day. So my understanding of that has allowed me to reach everyone. And there's no way that you wouldn't, because that's what I truly feel.
I recently spoke to a man who was about to abandon his path of spiritual study because he couldn't seem to align himself with the laws of life. In essence, he couldn't make the law work for him. He had done all of the right things and he had said all of the right affirmations. He was praying and meditating and listening. Still, his life was a mess. Surely he thought that I can't be on the right path. And that happens to many of us. We do something for a certain amount of time and we have an expectation that there's a reward, and when we don't get it, we think we've done the right thing. Perhaps he thought he should return to the spiritual tradition of his family. Listening to him, I said, been there, done that. I knew exactly how he was feeling. Suddenly I remembered that in the midst of my own spiritual breakdown, a good friend offered me something that I was excited to share with this pilgrim in distress. We must make our spiritual practice personal. It is of absolutely no use to read the words and study the principles and look at the book as if they're magic formulas that are going to bestow something on you. Every word you receive as guidance on your spiritual path must be received as if it was written specifically for you. Whether it's the Bible or the Torah or the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, you have to know that these words are coming to you at this time for you. Next, you must make all of your spiritual practices and insights practical. You do not need wings and feathers. You need to walk on earth. Be heavenly bound, but be good on earth. You must hear and receive spiritual teachings in a manner that addresses right where you are, just as you are right now. It is so tempting to think that you've got to wait for something in you or around you to be different before you can apply what you're learning and studying. A better way to interpret what you receive when you read or when you study is to put it in the first person, making an I frame of reference by applying it to something that's going on in your life right now. Next, you must believe that the answer to your prayer is possible. Whether you've been praying it for 15 days or weeks or months, or if you prayed it this morning. Because the minute you entertain the thought, just one thought, that everyone's prayer can be answered but yours, the possibility for your prayer to be answered goes right out the window. All things are possible to those who believe. So make your belief and the things you believe in personal and practical, and know that they are possible.